Welcome back to the Sibling Group Chat. I'm Owen.
And I'm Cassidy.
And today we're back at it with the Odyssey Review, Episode 16, No Stupid Questions.
Yes, this episode first aired on March 5th, 1988. It is a lost episode. We've explained those before. And in this episode, many people don't want to be bothered with a youngster's constant stream of stupid questions. But some do. Wit makes a perfect match in this sensitive story of mutual understanding. And the themes here are compassion, respect for the handicapped, and the value of seeking knowledge. I feel like whoever wrote the description for this episode is not the same person who's been writing episode descriptions up to this point, because it read differently.
Yeah. Honestly, this whole episode it wasn't bad, it was just a little odd, I felt like.
A little odd, yeah, but overall I kind of liked it.
I mean, it's kind of cute.
Yeah. I guess we should get into it, though.
Yeah, so anyway, before we actually get into the episode, a little intro is about two guys in an example of what one might consider a stupid question. Well, not really, but like when you get more of an answer than you're looking for. And so there's just one guy asks the time, and the other guy has to show off his new watch. And then it's a whole ordeal on trying to actually figure out the time.
Yeah, this watch was like ahead of its time, because I feel like we're probably almost at the point here where watches would do this. We're just like, hey, watch, what time is it?
Yeah.
I was like, man, when they wrote this in the late 80s, I'm sure they had no idea what watches would be like in 2025.
Yeah. So then after that, Chris asks what is a stupid question, but she doesn't answer the question because Mr. Whitaker is going to answer the question, which I actually don't think he does. I'm pretty sure Chris answers it at the end of the episode. But, I mean, like, it's implied but not stated.
Yeah, he doesn't, like, directly say the answer, but yeah.
Anyway. Getting into the episode, Mr. Whitaker is at wit's end.
Not Mr. Whitaker. Good old John Avery Whitaker.
Yeah, I almost wrote that down. I was like,
I just thought that was really funny. Chris is like, good old John Avery Whitaker.
Yeah. Not the way you generally hear him referred to. That's for sure. Yes, Mr. Whitaker is at wit's end, and Meg Stevens comes in. And she's on roller skates, so she asks if she can come in since she's wearing roller skates, and Mr. Whitaker says she can, because she says she needs to ask him a favor. But it's clear that she also just likes to ask questions in general.
Yeah, we learned that very quickly.
Because I think Mr. Whitaker had said, he said much obliged to the person who left as she was coming in.
I think so. That's how I was trying to remember where she even heard much obliged once she started asking about it. But I think maybe he must have said it, or maybe the person leaving said it.
Maybe. Because before she even gets around to asking him this favor, she asks him what much obliged means.
Yeah.
And so he explains that to her, and then he's like, well, you didn't come all the way in here just to ask that, did you? She's like, no, I need to ask you a favor. And so she has asked Mr. Whitaker if she can stay at wit's end until her mom gets off of work. Yeah. Which Mr. Whitaker is fine with. And throughout the course of the episode, we realize that her mom usually gets off work before wit's end closes, so I don't know why it would have been a problem.
I had that same question. I said, if she's getting off work before wit's end closes, why is this a problem? Also, I feel like throughout all of Forever and Odyssey, I've always wondered, what are the hours of wit's end? Because it seems here he's open after dark. That seems to continue later, like when Hank Murray robs wit's end. There's other references to it being late at wit's end. But what kid's place is staying open that late?
Yeah, I don't know. The hours are flexible to the necessity of the episode.
Yeah, I'd say that's probably true. But yeah, I had that same question. I said, if her mom's getting off work before wit's end closes, why does she feel the need to ask to make sure it's okay that Meg stays here?
Yeah, because it's not like parents have to supervise their kids at wit's end.
No.
But
anyway, yeah.
Continuing on, her mom works at a hair parlor, and it seems like Meg had just been hanging out with her mom there while her mom worked until her mom's boss got tired of her, basically said, "You can't stay here anymore. You ask too many stupid questions."
I think she asked a rather good question, actually.
Yeah,
She wanted to know why permanents or perms were called that if you have to come in to get a new one every week.
valid.
It's a valid question. I don't think you really have to get them done every week.
Probably not.
Maybe
But like,
the hardcore old lady ones, but yeah, it's a good point. I can see why the lady didn't like her asking that question though.
yeah. So Mr. Whitaker then tells Meg that there's no such thing as a stupid question, and then he says he'll get a second opinion. And then he calls for Chris. And my first thought was like, why are we talking to Chris?
I thought the same thing. I was like, is Mr. Whitaker about to break the fourth wall? I was so confused, especially because it took forever for the guy to answer him.
Uh, I thought that's what he
Yeah.
was doing, and I was like, we don't do this in Odyssey.
No. Glad to know we still don't. I wouldn't have been okay.
Yeah. But no, it is not Chris Intro Lady. It is Chris, what's his, Gottlieb. We don't find out his last name till later.
Yeah, I still have no idea what the last name actually is. I couldn't get all the sounds together right, but something like Gottlieb.
Pretty sure that's what it was.
Well, sometimes it sounded like there was a B at the end, like Gottlieb.
Gottlieb?
I don't know. Chris G.
Yeah, Chris G. He doesn't like to talk much. He's kind of a quiet guy, and we don't really find out why right away until Meg obviously starts to talk to him because she likes to talk and ask questions. And so she's kind of talking to him. He orders a coffee, and then he's going to head out to leave. And then Meg wants to get the door for him. I think it's because she's wearing her roller skates still. I couldn't quite tell, but I'm pretty sure she caught, it was a collision as she tried to get the door for him. And she knocked him out of his wheelchair, which we were not aware until then that he was in a wheelchair.
I know, that's what I was thinking too. And I was trying to figure out, like, were we supposed to know he was in a wheelchair? I think there just wasn't a great sound effect for it. Because even later, when you know he's moving, there's not really a sound effect for it. So, yeah, I feel like that was like I don't know if it was supposed to be kind of a mystery until they started talking about it. But like later in Odyssey, like in the Mysterious Stranger episode where he has like the uncle who's in a wheelchair, there's a wheelchair sound there. Or, like you have Zachary who's in a wheelchair. So we were missing wheelchair sounds.
Yeah. So yeah, I didn't realize he was in a wheelchair until then.
Me neither, but it makes everything kind of make a little more sense why he's so awkward and turned off and everything.
Yeah, and so Meg in the collision, she knocked him out of his wheelchair. I couldn't catch if she knocked him and the wheelchair over or what, but so both Meg and Whit want to help him back into his wheelchair, and he says he doesn't need help. He ends up getting back in the chair and leaving all on his own power.
Mm-hmm.
And seems rather upset, which makes Meg upset. But then Whit tells her that he's known Chris for a long time. He said they've been friends for 12 years, and he's been mad the whole time.
Yeah. Only Mr. Whitaker could be friends with somebody like that for that long.
Uh-huh. And so then Meg's mom comes to pick her up, and that's when we learn that...
Before Meg's mom comes to pick her up, Mr. Whitaker offers Meg to cheer her up. He offers her apple pie a la mode.
Oh, yes.
I don't know if you could get apple pie at Wit's End.
I feel like he makes lots of things. I know they made apple turnovers, so it wouldn't be that hard to make apple pie.
That's true. I feel like Mr. Whitaker just makes whatever he wants. He's just chefing it up back there.
Oh, yeah. He can make whatever he wants, just not hamburgers. He can't do that.
Nope. And if you don't know why, that's your problem.
Yeah, you have to listen to an episode of which number I do not know.
Yeah, I don't either. He can make pizza, though.
He can, yes.
Anyway, moving on. Meg's mom shows up.
Moving on, Meg's mom comes to pick her up, and we learn that Meg's father left when she was a baby, so her mother is a single mother.
Mm-hmm.
And then I assume what's the next day? I couldn't tell if it was the next day or if Meg had been staying at Wit's End for a few days at this point, but I got the impression it was the next day.
Yeah, I think that's probably what it was, but yeah.
Well, no, Mr. Gottlieb says that it was the next day, actually, later.
Oh. Okay. Yeah.
So yeah, the next day Meg comes to Wit's End, and she brought a piece of paper with 10 questions of things that she wanted to know, which Wit had asked her to compile for him.
Mhm.
And then he gives her a piece of apple pie and a coffee and tells her to go to the library and give it to a Mr. Gottlieb. Now, Meg does not know that Mr. Gottlieb is Chris at this point.
We don't either,
Yeah,
as
we
you're
don't.
listening. We're
Yeah, we
referring
don't.
to him as that now, but as listeners, you don't know it either.
Yes. So, who works in the reference section of the library. So she goes to the library, and first she's at like the main desk of the library, and the lady there is exceedingly not helpful.
Yeah.
She's
She
like,
needs to brush up on her librarian skills.
yeah, because first she asked for the reference section, and she's like, the kids' books are over here. She did not ask for the kids' books.
Yeah, but also, like, she shouldn't have just completely ignored her, but what 10-year-old is asking for the reference section?
Understandable. It would have made more sense if she'd been like, it's in the back. Why do you need to know?
Yeah, she wasn't being very helpful.
And then she's like pointing it, but instead of calling them bookshelves, she calls them like
Stacks,
stacks,
which is what they're called,
which
but
is
she
what
could
they're
have
called. But
explained it better.
you say,
You're
what
just like,
10-year-old's gonna know that?
no, yeah.
And then she asks about the coffee and pie because you're not really supposed to have food in a library.
Correct.
And then she's directed in the area of Mr. Gottlieb, and she gets back to the area, and she calls out to him because he's apparently not. She's either couldn't quite find her way to his desk, or he wasn't at his desk.
Mm-hmm.
But she calls out for Mr. Gottlieb, and he comes up, and then she realizes, and he realizes that they have met before.
Yeah. And I don't think she even realizes right away that the man Chris from Wits End is Mr. Gottlieb, who she's coming to talk to. I think at first she just thinks they happen to be running into each other, and then she realizes this is who she was sent to talk to.
Yeah. So she gives the coffee and pie to him because one of the things she was sent to do by Mr. Whitaker was just to give the pie and coffee to Mr. Gottlieb. And then he asked why she was there or what she's carrying, the piece of paper with her 10 questions. And she's like, I was sent to. And then she kind of tries to, like,
She's kind of flustered.
yeah. She kind of tries to, like, back out of it, like she wasn't going to ask the questions to Mr. Gottlieb. But then he does take the paper because she tells him what it is. And so he gives it a go to try to help her answer at least the first question, which is about a compass. We never really find out what the question exactly was. Like, maybe it's what does a compass do or something?
Something like that, yeah.
But
Because a lot of her questions were just like one word. So some of these words she didn't know what they meant, or she didn't know what the thing did, or something like that.
Mr. Gottlieb tries to explain it to her next. So he's like, there's different types of compasses. This is what it does. And so she doesn't really understand how a lot of things work. So explaining what a compass does led to more questions. So he's like, we'll come back to that. And then, so her next
and the
question...
reason she had a compass that belonged to her dad. So it seems like this compass is really special to her just because it belongs to this dad that she's never known. But yeah.
So then her next question is, what is a fjord? Because she heard it on...
Which he has to
TV
clarify
program.
what all these words are. Like, she didn't spell compass right. She didn't spell fjord right. Apparently she has really bad spelling.
Okay, who would spell fjord right?
Well, that's fair. But compass shouldn't be that hard to spell. I bet she can spell words that start with S really well, though, because we learned earlier that her favorite book is the S Encyclopedia.
Yeah, what a nerd.
Yeah.
I mean, encyclopedia
Also, like,
is
that they just...
interesting, but who just sits down and like, yes, time for another reread of my favorite encyclopedia.
Well, I think that was the only one she had, and she just likes knowledge. I also like that they threw in that this was a Universal Press encyclopedia.
Oh, was it?
Which, now that I think about it, I don't know that we even know yet that Mr. Whitaker works for the Universal Encyclopedia Company, but they said it was.
Yeah.
Anyway, back to the fjord.
Yes, she misspelled fjord. She clarifies fjord. She heard it on some TV program or something. So Mr. Gottlieb tells her that it's a natural harbor with really steep cliffs in Norway. And she's like, oh, I thought it was a Norwegian, what did she say, a Kiar?
Yar.
Does she think that's how car is pronounced, or does she think that that's how they would pronounce it?
I think she thinks that's how they would pronounce it. Because she's clearly not trying to make a joke, because when he starts laughing at her joke, she doesn't get it.
Yeah.
But yeah, she was like unintentionally made this joke, and Mr. Gottlieb just thinks it's hilarious.
I mean, it's pretty funny.
It is. It took me a second, like, a fjord? A fjord? Oh, yeah, it was pretty funny. And then it was funny to, like, yeah. And it's funny, like, Mr. Gottlieb has been, like, slowly warming up to her this whole time, and this is, like, the last thing that, like, he just loses it, and he just thinks it's so funny.
Yeah. And so then...
Well, the librarian who's at the front desk, she, like, comes... Does she wonder what they're doing? Are they being too loud? Or, no,
I'm trying to remember why she came.
Some books got delivered from Mr. Gottlieb.
That's what it was. He had to deliver from Mr. Gottlieb. And then...
Yeah.
Then he says something about patrons of the library, or that Meg is a patron of the library, and so she's really confused because apparently her only context of what a patron is like a patron saint.
Yeah, which I'm a little surprised of all the things she doesn't know, that number one, she even knows one meaning of the word patron, and two, that's the meaning she knows.
Yeah. So then he has her grab a dictionary, and they look up the word patron, and so he's kind of explaining it to her. And then either she's been curious the whole time and she just blurts out, asks, or she just decided it would be a good time after they talked about patron, but she just like straight up asked, what happened to your legs?
Yeah, which seems very abrupt, but from what we know of Meg, it seems pretty on character for her, and at this point, I guess Mr. Gottlieb, I thought maybe he'd shut down again, but at this point he seems to have warmed up enough to her that he's fine to just answer her question.
He just says he was in a car wreck, but that he gets along fine. And it's kind of like, he did slightly shut down because he kind of thought that maybe she was asking because she didn't think he could, like, handle himself. It's kind of like, and so that's why he said he gets along fine, because he wants to, like, emphasize that, like, he still is able to take care of himself.
Mm-hmm.
And then she's like, oh, I know. You're strong. And he seems kind of, like, that caught him off guard.
Yeah.
That she would say that. And so he asks why. And she's like, well, you were able to get yourself back into the chair and open the door and leave Wits End all by yourself yesterday. Which, I mean, fair. Like, that would take some strength for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's probably got some great upper body and arm strength.
Yeah, no kidding. So then... And so this point, he's like fully warmed up to her. So he apologizes for being rude to her at first, like the last night and at the beginning of the day. And then Whit calls and says that it's time for Meg to leave. Well, actually, what he says is that it's dark, but that implies that it's time for Meg to come.
Yeah. Do you think that we heard this whole conversation in real time, or more time passed? Because I felt like, I don't know what time she got to Wit's End, but it didn't seem like it had been all that long, and all of a sudden it's dark outside.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking there had to be some more time because it was, yeah. I
get the impression that we didn't hear the whole conversation, and she just was there for hours, just asking questions and getting answers and stuff like that. That felt like that's what made sense to me. If it really was dark outside,
it kind of seemed like that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So then we just have this kind of weird interlude. Like Whit is just talking like outside of the story here.
Yeah, like he starts narrating almost, which, yeah, it was weird because nothing like this has ever happened up to this point. I don't think anything like this does happen again until the It All Started When album, when you have different characters, mostly Whit, narrating the story. But yeah, pretty unusual in general, and definitely for this point in time.
And then, yeah, so he's talking briefly about like taking initiative to do good, like introducing people, like helping them get over stuff like Mr. Gottlieb's like closedness.
Yeah, which seems like they're trying to throw in like a secondary theme to the episode almost. Because like if the episode is about stupid questions, then why are we talking about doing the good to introduce people? Like, not that that's the wrong thing. Like, it just felt like they were trying to...
Well, then I was caught off guard because the last thing he said was like, see, like, is he trying to set up Meg's mom and Mr. Gottlieb?
I was wondering the same thing. That's kind of how it seemed.
Like, since when does Wit do this kind of thing?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we did find out Mr. Gottlieb was only 38, so I would guess if that might be a good age with Meg's mom. I don't know. But yeah,
Yeah,
it seemed to imply that, and I was like, this is a little weird.
because then it shows like the last part of the episode is just Mr. Gottlieb meeting Meg's mom. Like, not they don't even talk to each other, but just
No,
Meg
it's just
introducing
Meg's.
them.
Yeah, she says, and I told Mr. Gottlieb you can cut his hair, and then that's how it ends.
Yeah, and then in Chris's clothing, she says that the only stupid question is the one you don't ask, and that's the end of the episode.
Yeah, there's a couple moments I want to go back to. One, like, the Meg tells Mr. Gottlieb that her mom could cut his hair. She had said the same thing to Mr. Whitaker the night before. Like, apparently Mr. Whitaker doesn't have a good haircut. Like, he even kind of agrees that he doesn't do a great job cutting his hair. And I just can't imagine Mr. Whitaker having unkempt hair. Like, I feel like he would be a very well dressed, like, hair nicely cut kind of a guy. I was like, okay, this is a little weird.
Yeah, I kind of agree.
Yeah. I think that was the only um yeah, just noting that. But yeah, I kind of liked this episode. Like you said, it was a little weird, but I felt like the story was cute. I like the relationship between Meg and Mr. Gottlieb in the end.
Yeah,
Even
me
if
too.
it is weird that he would the whole, like, it could have done without the whole matchmaking thing. It was kind of just
Yeah,
like a weird, just we're gonna just throw this out there at the end, but yeah.
but yeah, overall decent episode.
Mhm. Any thoughts on why you think it might have been removed?
Not really.
No, because I feel like they handled, like, interacting with handicapped people okay. I didn't feel like there was any problems there.
I mean, it was kind of a short episode,
Yeah, it felt short. I don't know if it really was that much shorter. But yeah.
but
It reminded me of there's a Studio C sketch about stupid questions. Have you ever watched it?
I don't believe I have.
Okay, well, the kids, if you should go watch it, or people in our audience. We know some of you like Studio C, so you might know what I'm talking about. But it's this classroom, and the teacher, or the kids keep going, "This might be a stupid question," and so the teacher says what Chris said. The only stupid question is the one you don't ask. But then these kids are asking, like, actually stupid questions, and by the end, the teacher just loses it. And yeah, it's a pretty funny one.
Yeah, yeah, I don't think I've seen that one, but I should go
Yeah.
watch it.
Another thing I was thinking about while listening to this episode, and I think I've kind of thought about it the previous 15 episodes, but I was noticing it more today. Do you feel like the way Hal Smith was doing Wit's voice changed over time? Like, I feel like at this early stage, Wit's voice sounds slightly different than how he sounds later.
Maybe a little bit, but not much.
Like, not like completely different, but like he's still learning the character and how he wants to do the voice almost.
Well, yeah, probably, but at the same time, they're still learning Adventures in Odyssey and how they wanted to do that.
Yeah, well, I'm not saying it's a problem. Everyone was learning how they were going to do the show, but I don't know. I feel like, and maybe we'll notice this with other people's voices as time goes, but I feel like his voice kind of shifts and changes over time, and I just thought that was interesting to note. If you're listening, or to those of you who are listening, you should comment and let us know what you think, if you think his voice changed over time slightly. Yeah. So that's it with lost episodes for a week or two. Our next episode, we're getting to our first two-parter, and I know you've been anxiously waiting for us to get to this episode. It is finally time for A Member of the Family, Parts 1 and 2.
About time. See, the reason why I've been waiting for this episode is because in the actual album, this is the second and third
Second
episode.
and third episode, yeah. I know, it's kind of crazy. But then you would think that, so we now, after we get through these two episodes, which we're going to review as one podcast episode, we have one episode of album 1 left, and that is A Change of Heart. And it is like 8 episodes away. We have some more Lost episodes, some more Officer Harley episodes, even a couple episodes that are in album 2 that aired before this one. So, we will eventually finish album 1. I don't think we had any idea how wonky the air dates would be. We just kind of assumed that albums were the same order, but it's been a fun thing to learn along the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, anything else?
I don't think so. What's our next episode?
A member of the family.
Oh, yeah, you just said that.
I did.
On another note, our next episode will be our 20th episode.
Woo!
Yay!
Very exciting.
That's counting our intro episode.
Oh, okay. Yes, and stay tuned on our social media. You can follow us on Facebook and Instagram at the Sibling Group Chat. Make sure to subscribe wherever you're watching or listening on Spotify and YouTube. And stay tuned for some exciting news that may be coming to you in the future about other podcast-related things. That's all I'll say for now, but be on the lookout. And I guess that's about it for now. Bye.
Yeah, we found out. See ya.